While the UK economy contracted by 0.2% in the third quarter of 2022, this may be the indication of a long and painful recession that will grind the country's economy into a total collapse if nothing is done. Experts are saying that the contraction doesn't yet represent a technical recession, but the figures popping up may be a sign that the economy is heading to a total shutdown. Now hold up there. Don't assume that I'm a prophet of doom here and try to make you all panic. The Bank of England has also announced that the recession about to hit the UK would be the longest since records began in the 1920s and said unemployment will almost double. A report from the Office for National Statistics has reported that, in output terms, there was a slowing in the quarter for the services, production, and construction industries. The services sector slowed to flat output on the quarter, driven by a fall in consumer-facing services, while the production sector fell by 1.5% in the third quarter of 2022, including falls in all 13 subsectors of the manufacturing sector. To save you all the stress, in summary, the report is saying that economic activities are declining and not looking so good. What does this mean for UK citizens? Are there any measures being put in place to curb this? What are the UK Prime Minister's efforts toward curbing a full-blown recession? We'll get to all of this shortly, but in the meantime, become familiar with our channel by clicking on the subscribe button and hitting the bell icon to be notified as soon as we drop the subsequent videos. Are you ready? Then let's get into it. Some weeks ago, the Bank of England forecast the country's longest recession since records began. The report suggests that the downturn, which began in the third quarter, will likely last until 2024 and may likely increase the unemployment rate by about 6.5% over the next 2 years. While this may seem gloomy, it doesn't even end here. Currently, the cost of living in the UK is soaring to an impossibly high level, and this continues to increase as real income is heavily hit by the rising cost of energy prices and the cost of tradable goods. In a bid to control the situation and stop the occurrence of double-digit inflation, the central bank recently imposed its largest hike of interest rates since 1989. The government also proposed a new fiscal policy that will include a substantial increase in taxes and spending cuts. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak mentioned that difficult decisions would need to be made in order to ensure that the economy returns to normal. However, Dutch bank ING was looking at a 2% hit to the UK GDP by the middle of 2023, which might take the country to a recession as severe as that experienced in the 1990s. ING developed market economist James Smith estimates a 0.3% contraction in economic activity in the fourth quarter with a further reduction in consumer spending. It's clear that with this number, the country is heading towards a technical recession. Smith also mentioned that as the winter wears on, we also expect to see more strain emerge in manufacturing and construction. Both of these sectors suffered noticeably during the 1990s and 2008 recession. To further understand the implication of this, he goes further to clarify the fall in manufacturing new orders linked to falling global consumer demand for goods and rising inventory levels, as well as higher energy costs, point to lower production by early 2023. Likewise, the sharp rise in mortgage rates and the very early signs of house price declines point to weaker building activity through next year. In summary, what Smith is trying to explain is that when there's a lower rate of manufacturing and production of goods, there'll be lesser goods in the market selling at very high prices. The higher prices will mean inflation, and this will set the economy towards recession. I may be wrong to assume that most of you watching this video right now are very conversant with economic terms and policies. Before we go into the cause of this recession, a little crash course on Economics 101. These are the basics. A country is in recession when economy shrinks for 2 quarters in a row. It's clear that the UK's economy shrank in the third quarter, and experts are saying that it will shrink again at the end of the year, which is the fourth quarter. If this happens, then the country will be on its way to a long and painful recession. The Bank of England has forecast a very challenging 2-year recession. A recession is a sign that a country's economy is doing badly. During recessions, companies make less money and lay off workers. The number of unemployed people rises, and graduates and school leavers find it very difficult to get their first jobs. This also affects the government as they receive less money in taxes to use in improving public services and infrastructures. During recessions, There may be a consequence on the quality of healthcare provided, and the education sector may also experience a reduction in funding from the government. In most situations, consumers tend to suffer more as businesses cover their costs with an increase in prices. Sam Burrows, managing director of Bristol Beer Factory, in an interview with BBC, shared his concern and how he's been trying to work out just how much of his soaring business costs can be passed on to customers. We can't price consumers out. We need people in pubs eating, drinking, and enjoying the hospitality sector, so it's a balancing act for me, he said. So the big question is, what led to this? This economic decline is largely due to the ongoing war in Ukraine and also the supply chain disruptions brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. And while this may be the case, another finger can be pointed at the former prime minister and her top economist. Their plan to slash taxes sent shockwaves through the financial markets. The new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has, however, implemented an economic agency that aims to provide control against the soaring inflation. He strongly believes that one way to achieve faster economic growth is to lower inflation and provide deregulation on the supply side. Sunak hopes to achieve this through tax increases on companies and payrolls. Now, while this may be a good remedy, the implication of increasing taxes on income may lead the economy to further doom. The situation in the UK currently is quite complicated. The economy of the country at this point is in a large twin deficit. Let me clarify. A twin deficit is when the current and financial accounts of a country are both in a deficit. To make you understand better, a current account tracks the imports and exports of a country. A country having a deficit current account means that it's importing more than it's exporting, which means more money is leaving the country than it's coming in. Apart from the current account deficit, the UK is also facing a fiscal account deficit. The fiscal account is equal to the government's total income subtracted from government expenditures. To make you understand this better, know that the fiscal account tracks all of the government spendings. Since the UK government is in a fiscal account deficit, it means that the government is spending more than it's earning. The fiscal deficit is expected to increase to about 8% in 2022 and 2023, which means that the government will be spending 8% more than it's earning. This is what the new Prime Minister is trying to curb by drastically cutting down on government spending to address the financial account deficit. With better economic policy being put in place to boost manufacturing activities, the current account deficit may also be addressed. The Finance Minister of the UK, Jeremy Hunt, has made other proposals that can help address this looming danger. Hunt's proposal includes tax increases and spending cuts. This might cover the current gap in the government's finances, which is at almost $64 billion. There's a global energy crisis, a global inflation crisis, and a global economic crisis. But today, with this plan for stability, growth, and public services, we'll face the storm, said Hunt. We do so today with British resilience and British compassion. As regards the troubles arising from the energy crisis, Hunt clarified that the government would maintain a cap on energy prices introduced by his predecessor Liz Truss, but may likely increase it in the second quarter of next year. Oil and gas companies will be forced to pay higher taxes on their profits, which is referred to as a windfall tax. While we are optimistic that this solves the problem or even slows it down, we hope that it's well implemented, because while it may look like a UK problem, it's far deeper and bigger than we think. Because clearly, when the UK begins to face a recession, it means that the whole of Europe may be in big trouble, and there may also be a global pattern emerging. So do you think the UK economy is headed for a total collapse yet? Do you think the current Prime Minister can hold his job for the next few years? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel as we bring you the hottest gist daily. Stay ready for the next big news.